What do you mean so?
I mean, so what? If you're saying that the reason that that your position is valid is because you can change these characteristics, and I can give you a way you can change the same characteristics when it comes to race, you still haven't explained why that's not an apt comparison.
I mean, well, we can stay on like the race versus sex thing if you want.
It's important for me because I want to see if you're logically consistent in your argumentation. And if you're not,
so we can put it this way
with
then.
The social construction, how can I take your argumentation seriously?
Well, because like we can again. So like, do you agree or disagree that like race and sex are like categorized by like clusters of phenotypical features usually?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So we agree that like these phenotypical features are usually what we would describe to like either a race or a sex. The point being that like mutability is part of it, right? So like trans people, like a lot of primary and secondary sex characteristics are mutable. So these can be changed, these can be adjusted, things like that. But additionally, like biological sex isn't inherited the way that like race is, right? So if you have like two white people that have a child, like that child is going to be white. But if you have like a man and a woman that have a child, like what is the gender of that baby, right?
What do you
like,
mean?
It's not like heritable in the same sense.
It is biologically inherited. What the hell are you talking about? Of course your sex is biological.
So how do you determine if it's like a boy or a girl? Like, because if two white people have sex
because
and they have a baby, the baby is going to be white. Okay, so which one is it going to be? How can you predict which one it's going to be? Because I can predict that like
they can predict almost at the formation of the reproductive organs.
No, so like that I'm talking like a step back. So like if you have a white guy and a white girl and they fuck and they have a baby, what race is the baby going to be? What color is the baby going to be?
Oh, probably white, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have like a man and a woman, a biological man and a biological woman, and they have a baby, what biological sex is the baby?
Oh, I see. So if you have a black man and a white woman who have sex, what color is the baby going to be?
They're usually mixed, but you'll usually classify based on like dominant genes. So like if you have like a black guy and a white girl that has like a baby, that baby is usually going to mark like black on like census data.
What color is it going to be? You don't.
I just told you. I said it was going to be mixed, and then usually like heritable features are going to be dominant.
Does
so
usually mean always?
Like a mixed
Does usually mean okay? It doesn't mean always. Okay, so you don't know what color it would be, right?
It would be mixed, yeah.
What color is that?
Mixed.
You don't know. Just say I don't know.
I just told you.
You don't know. It's clear that you don't know. If you say okay, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to have a male or a female baby, right? How would you know which one you're going to get? Okay, I can see that argument. But if you have a black man and a white woman and they have a baby, you also can't tell me what color that baby would. It could be lighter.
That would be like
couldn't that baby be lighter, right? And couldn't that baby be darker?
It could, but it's going to be a mix of those features. It's not going to be a hard line binary. Like you're kind of arguing for bimodal distribution of traits.
I'm saying that the argument that you're making of immutable characteristics is nonsensical and applicable to race as well.
Well, I mean, I think the race and sex characteristic, like that was my point, is that like I think that that's kind of like a shitty comparison. That was kind of what I said.
Okay, maybe you think it's a shitty comparison, but I still need to know how it is that you don't have to bite the bullet that because you think that transgenderism is real because it has an effect on you. That's probably the argument. Is that right?
No,
it's not. You think that it's so the social construction that is transgenderism. Why do you think that that's real?
In the same context that like everything else that's socially constructed is real, like money is a social construct, but I still have like $5 in my wallet that's worth $5, right? Like so social constructs still because social constructs still like operate within like laws and rules of like society. If I give my landlord like $1 and I say that's worth $1,000, that doesn't mean anything. Like my individual interpretation like doesn't. Why? Because that's how social constructs work. We kind of all agree.
Because of what agreement, right?
Yeah, we kind of all use like the same kind of like almost like rules, right? Like we all understand that $1 is $1, $5 is $5. It's fake. It's made up. Like money doesn't like we ascribe like monetary value to money. And it only works if we all agree on it. So if we understand that like gender, like the concept of gender itself, like behaviors or like predilections or interests or any of these things that are typically associated with like either a male or a female, if we agree that like all of these things are socially constructed, then there's kind of like variance within that. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. Again, we can do literally apply that same logic to the white race. Yeah.
Why are we going back to race? I thought we moved off of race.
It's important to me because I want to know if you reject the category that there is a race called white or not.
I mean, I think that we can look to like general, like gesture vaguely at like certain phenotypical features that are associated with whiteness and say like, this is like a white person. Like if I told you to close your eyes and say like, imagine a white person, you're probably going to imagine like a set of features that are heavily associated with white people. I don't think if you like, if I said, imagine a white person, you'd be like, I know Idris Elba. Like you'd probably like associate like certain traits with that, right?
But is it real?
I mean, the way that those traits cluster, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So then when people say that they're white, you don't think that that's just a category of the mind, but a real phenomenon.
Like it like the category itself, like all categories are like things that we design, right? Like we like make the rules and the parameters of like what that category is, but we all have like a common understanding of like what, like if I told you like close your eyes, picture a white person, you would probably imagine somebody like right off the top of my head, like I don't know, like Adam Sandler, like there's a white guy, right? I wouldn't be like like Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
And
like we have like a loose understanding. Usually like skin color, like facial shape, like eye separation distance. Like it's just like a cluster of traits that will like categorize as like white, right?
So then what you're conceding right now is that you believe that there is a race called white.
I believe that there are like clusters of like features that we would heavily associate with what we would consider the category of white to be.
Okay, gotcha. So at least the argumentation is consistent, that you believe that A, there is a race called white. So if people say things like you're trying to exterminate the white race, are they being conspiratorial then in your worldview?
I don't really know what this has to do with trans people.
What it has to do with it is logical consistency. What I don't understand is the logical consistency of saying one thing is a category of the mind, but another is not. The social construction exists both ways. It's important. It's important to me as I reject there being an identity called white because I don't believe it exists except as a category of the mind any more than I believe that gender exists as anything other than a category of the mind.
Everything is a category of the mind.
No,
like
not everything is. Yeah. There's physical realities that are not categories of the mind. They exist outside
and
of
the way that we categorize them is a category of the mind, right? Like the way that we interact with them and understand them is a category. So like everything is a category of the mind.
No, not everything is a category of the mind. That's an objectively false statement. There's lots and lots and many things that are not categorized by the mind. Like everything that's objectively real outside of your human thought. Everything that's outside of human thought.
Give me like one example.
A tree.
A tree. Our understanding of a tree is like socially constructed.
Doesn't matter.
The category
of
tree
exist
is
regardless of if we understood it or not.
Sure, and like the paper in my wallet that says one on it would exist regardless of my interaction with it or not. But like because we
now
assume that it
what
means
a social
one
construct is.
I don't know if you think that was like a W or whatever, but like that's what I've been saying this whole time is that like the category and how we interact with it is entirely socially constructed. Everything is fucking socially constructed.
So why shouldn't I reject your social construct if I don't find it to be a useful categorization?
Because utility goes farther than like your own personal understanding of its utility.
I see. So consensus then.
Not necessarily consensus, but just like the idea that like, so like if you think of it in the sense of like, so think of like trees, right? Like trees, like you use the example of a tree. Like we all understand what a tree is. We know what a tree is when we see one. But if I ask you to draw a picture of a tree and I draw a picture of a tree, you might draw like a birch tree and I might draw like a palm tree. Both of us are right. But the category itself that is a tree is like this overarching idea that is like constructed by us. Like the tree itself is real, but our understanding and how we interact with the tree is real. So it extends past like my own understanding of what a tree is because I can literally go outside and see a tree.
Yes, like, but that's objective. You're talking about things that physically exist in objective reality that are outside the categorization of the mind.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
You are talking about things that objectively exist outside of the category of the mind that would exist independent of human thought. In this particular case, when you're talking about transgenderism, it only exists within the confines of human thought. So when you're talking about what your sex is, I say that gender doesn't exist and is simply a construct of the mind, and that we should defer instead to primary sex. And the secondary sex characteristics almost always come from the primary sex. So why shouldn't I reject gender as being nothing more than a categorical, nonsensical term that's made up by you?
Well, because when we interact with like the concept of sex, right? we're operating on like the concept of gender, because like if you think of it in the sense of like I don't really know or care if you like believe in the existence of like sex-based oppression, right? So like we can even go to like another country, like think of like femicide in China, where like you're only allowed to have like male babies, right? And they'll just trash the female babies because they're like, you know, they don't need them or whatever. Do you think that like every instance of like a woman like feeling oppression is like because of her sex, or do you think that there's like social like categorization that comes into that?
I don't. I think that that's a bifurcation. That's
what do you mean?
I think that you're giving me an either or choice, and it's more complex than that.
Well, I'm asking because I like. Do you agree that there are like social? Are there like social influences?
Let me answer it.
Like
males and females can feel similar types of oppression that are outside of whatever their sex is, or it could be with whatever their sex is. Okay, well, then what are you asking?
So I'm asking you, so like we have an example of like female oppression, right? Where like in some countries, female babies instantly in the dumpster, okay? Can you conceive of an instance where like a woman is being like oppressed, not in the sense of like baby girl being thrown in a dumpster, that hinges on like social influence or like social perception?
Give me an example.
A girl's walking down the street and some dude's like, hey, nice tits. Do you think that that's about like her biological sex, or do you think that's like about her gender presentation as a woman?
It's about her biological sex, yeah.
Really?
The secondary sex characteristics come from the biological sex.
So what if there's a drag queen that passes as a girl and has like these big fucking fat mommy milkers, and some dude's like, hey, nice rack, and they're like, hey, I'm actually a guy. Like, do you think that was that what he just like assumed that her ovaries were very fertile? Or?
I think that he fell for a magician's trick. And it's easy to create optical. Yes, it's easy to create optical illusions, including with sex. And let me give you an example of one such illusion.
Okay.
Have you ever seen the trend that's happened in the last 10 years of people who watch animated pornography?
You mean like furry porn and stuff?
No, animated pornography, like Japanese animated pornography.
I'm not familiar with that. But
well, it's quite the trend. Okay, and it's on the upward trend. When it comes to pornography, are those characters real?
No,
they're not real. They're categories of the mind, but yet you can still feel attraction towards this piece of paper, right? And this character that isn't even real. It's a magician's trick. So saying that, hey, because we can trick the mind into believing that the secondary sex characteristic is real, doesn't mean that it actually is.